So from your experience, can you tell us what you're seeing?
Sure. So what the pandemic is showing with cities is the underlying inequality that's been there all along. The pandemic, to some extent, is an accelerator, speeding up and worsening trends that have been happening in America's cities for quite some time. Cities have always been places that have disease, unfortunately. New York City lived through 3 cholera epidemics in the 1800s. The influenza of the 1900s killed many more people per capita than this pandemic is doing. And the important point there for cities is that cities continue to grow throughout those pandemics. So there's a little bit of hysteria sometimes in the press about this is the end of cities. This is not the end of cities. It's a big problem, but cities have grown for centuries, and I think they'll continue to do so. The inequality problem, I think, is still quite substantial. Both disease rates and death rates are much higher among low-income and non-white populations, especially Blacks. Latinos in Los Angeles, if you look at the data there.
Yeah. What do you think are the impacts that those immediate budget holes at the city level are going to have on populations, and especially, by race, by class, gender? Any insights there?
Yeah, so the budget problems are because we're in a deep recession, right? And recessions can get caused by lots of things. The pandemic triggered this one, but we lived through a recession starting in 2008 that was triggered by a financial system meltdown. And that also was hard on cities. Cities are unfairly advantaged in terms of their budgets. They are the centers of their metropolitan economies, which make up suburban areas as well as the cities. But the cities don't get all the economic benefit that their central economic role produces. So the politics are out of line with the economics. Property tax bases in wealthy suburbs benefit from being near a major city like New York or Los Angeles or Chicago, but those cities politically do not capture all the tax benefits that the economy produces. So that's one structural thing to think about when the budgets are going bad. The other thing is that states and cities have to balance their budgets. Unlike the federal government, they can't run deficits. So that is a double whammy. Revenues of all types have been hit by the pandemic, by really the recession that the pandemic induced. Sales taxes, income taxes, property taxes even are slowing down and will be revalued. State aid to cities is going to go down because state budgets also are in real trouble. The only real savior here is the federal government. The federal government can run deficits and can and should be putting a lot more money into cities, but they're not. As a result, cities are left on their own and they have almost no alternative but to cut. And those cuts, as you said, will hit hardest on those least able to absorb them, poor and minority households.